set up. Sorry about that. Hello. Just getting it going now. Sorry, I know I had the stream scheduled for about almost half an hour ago, but had some things come up. We're all good. We're live now. And just get these things going. How are we going today, guys? Also, I was informed yesterday after the stream that my BGM was not audible. Turns out I had it muted in OBS the whole time. So hopefully, hopefully it should be good now. But yeah, cool. This is where we got last time. Alright, calm down, Reese. Let's just get our light source in the right spot. Yeah, so yesterday we made some pretty good progress, I reckon. Just messing around with this fella here. I really like the way that it's coming along. But yeah, hang on. How's the music? Is it a bit quiet? Like on OBS, it looks like it's pretty low. I might pull it up a little bit. What do we think of this? This good? Or maybe a little bit lower? Because I know that I'd messed around. What's his name? This is Crumper. This is Crumper. Alright, so, yeah, we had a decent bit of progress yesterday. Okay, sounds good now? Cool. Yeah, so, what we want to do today, I did most of the base coding. In order to finish him off, first of all, we'll need to do the base. Crumper with a K. But, so we're gonna need to do the base. That'll be the last bit. But then for the KRORK, we're going to, I reckon, do a couple of tiny edge highlights on the jaw, just to really pick out some bits. Do a couple of lights on, I reckon, in the middle of this bit here. Maybe on the sides of his weapon here, and then maybe we'll try do his blade as some kind of like heat knife or something. That'd be cool. And then we'll see how we go from there. Okay. So, oh, let's just get our paints out. So I'm a little behind schedule, so still getting everything set up. All right. Where are we? I think that should be most of the... Okay. I've got my greens, my brown, and I've also got a yellow and a red so I can make some orange and work on his heat blade. Man, why is this not focusing? There we are. Okay. So, we'll just get a super fine brush. And for our highlights, like our edge highlights, not going to do a whole lot of them because we've already got a fair bit of depth built up on him. So just for a few edge highlights, we'll go through with This fella here, I think that's the Warpstone Glow. It is. Shake that up and get a bit of it on the wet palette. I nearly just threw it across my room. That wouldn't have been fun. Okay. Just a tiny bit on the wet palette. Don't need much. Okay. Yeah, that looks good. There we are. Just some very fine edge highlights on here. Just to pick out that little bit without being too messy. I think that's nice, just helps it pop a little bit. Yeah, I'm really liking that. That looks really nice. Very subtle, but I think it really does a lot. Let's just come through and pick out a few of these highlights. Just at some of the brighter points. I think the front of this shoulder pad is a good one. Looks good, thank you. Oh, I went a bit thick there. Just wipe it away with our finger. There we are, just a very fine little section. We'll just wrap around the front of the pauldron. Yeah, because we really don't need a lot. I'm really happy with how I built up the definition for the most part. So I'm just trying to give it that little bit more. I reckon the raised bits on this would actually be really nice to highlight. Not the whole way around, but just enough to really pick out that texture. I'm gonna go just on the inside edge of this here. Just very carefully. I don't want to get any in the recess. Yeah, I think that's a nice little bit there. Oh, that looks really nice. I'm happy with that. Yeah, I feel like the more time I spend painting, the more I appreciate that less highlights means more. Because it's so easy just to do too many edge highlights. Do another one on this lower edge here. Then we'll come around the back here and see where I've got this gradient here. I'm gonna highlight the bottom and top of that, just above that that section there, just to help define that. Because right now, it looks good on the camera, but in person it's still a little blank. Also, not blank, but I guess a little flat. I'm just gonna try to build that up a little bit more. We're just gonna get a little bit of an edge highlight above that section there. And then same at the bottom edge of it. And yeah, like with all of it, it's very, very subtle, but I think that it just elevates it that little bit to make it look really nice. We can do a bit more on the this bottom edge of the ankle here, because this will catch a lot of light. And I think going over the bits where there's actually a lot of quite a dark edge as well helps really pick it out. Gives a lot of very nice definition. Another edge that I've just noticed that would be good to highlight is just around the top edge here. Because having such a bright lamp right next to me actually helps me identify where good highlights would be. Because that's yeah, one thing that I've just noticed is it's hard for me to visualize where like zenithal light would come from, but when I have a lamp like literally right here, it just shows me where the good highlights can land. So I can just see where the light is really hitting, and I know where I can put the highlights and it'll look nice. So I can see that it's really light along here, so this outer edge is good to just get a little bit of a highlight on. Don't need to do too much though. Less is more. Whoops, 1 second. Yep, alright, we're good. Tried to turn away from the mic there, so hopefully that didn't just blast your ears out. Let's get a little highlight on the back here. This is a little uninteresting. But we're picking out we're getting some light on there. Yeah, that's actually quite nice with the contrast. Bless you, thank you. I'm actually really liking the effect of doing the edge highlight on the edge of a really dirty spot, like where it's worn away and you just get that really bright point peeking through, like what we've got on the backpack here. I think that's pretty cool. Oh right, yeah, on the knee pad here. I know we were building a lot of brightness on there. Just getting a little bit on the top edge of that. There we are, that's quite nice. And then get the consistency right. A little bit on the top edge of here. And a little bit just on this little break in the armor. Right there, that's quite nice. That really fine one. I'm not sure how visible it is, I'll zoom it in. Just this bit here, that's really nice. Just running up in that chink in the armor. And then might just get a little bit on the bottom edge of this panel here. And then probably say that that might be enough, because I don't want to go overboard. Actually, I'll do a bit on here, because I think we haven't done anything on the arm there, but we do have a point of highlight. But I don't want to sit here for an hour just doing edge highlights, because as fun as that is for me, it's definitely not fun for you guys. And also, if I spend too long doing edge highlights, I'll end up doing too many, and then it'll end up not looking as nice. Hey, what do we think? I think maybe edge highlight there, because that is catching a lot of light. And then I'm gonna stop edge highlighting, because otherwise I'll be here forever. So we just want to get a very fine one here. Because it's quite a dark and weathered section. We don't want to go too thick or it'll look quite nasty. So just gently feathering our way in. And we'll make it thicker towards the bottom edge, because that's where most of the light will gather. And maybe drop it just down off the side there, because he's open on that side, so more light will come in that way. I think that looks pretty good. Get a bit on here. Okay, I keep saying I'm just gonna stop here. I need to do this bit. This bit, I can't not do it. I'm sorry, I'm sorry. There we are, just getting that nice bright highlight. I think just gives it that little bit extra. Can't stop, won't stop. I need to stop though. Okay. Surely I'm done, right? Surely that's enough. Alright, I'm gonna say that's enough edge highlighting for now. If let's do some other bits and maybe we can come back later and do some more highlights if we think they're necessary. It's best not to overdo it. So, what now? I think we want his eye. Let's really pick out his eyes because right now his face is not all that interesting. So I reckon if we get some nice, strong sort of red oranges, like probably a nice strong red-orange color for his eyes, and just really pick that out, I think that'd do wonders for it. So I'm gonna mix something up using using waaaaagh red and Flash Gets yellow. Because waaaaagh is a decent bit brighter than the corn red that I use for most things. So it should have that little bit of extra pop to it. I'll zoom this out so you can see what I'm doing. I'm just gonna get a little drop of that in here. Shouldn't need a whole lot. I'll need a bit more than that though. I'm not confident in my ability to accurately mix with small amounts. We'll get one more drop. Come on. This is one of the paints that I'm running low on, so I will need to, oh, that'll be plenty. Yeah, I'll need to restock. Let's just get these little dry bits out of the way so that they don't get mixed up on my brush. Managed to make an air bubble underneath. Let's get that out of there. Okay. I only need a very tiny little bit of the red. So we're going to use our, where's our ratty brush here? This one, the very old dry brush that I bought and have just been abusing with glue and all that sort of stuff. It's going to get a little bit of red. It's going to be mostly yellow we use because the red's a much stronger pigment. So we want it to be swinging more towards the red end of the spectrum, I reckon. Okay, so it's still a teeny bit yellow for my liking, so we're going to get a little bit more red. Just get the excess off and get a little bit more red in there. Should be plenty. Just pull everything in towards the middle. Maybe a tiny bit more red. Alright, I'm pretty happy with that. Let's see what we can do. So, this is going to be a test of my dexterity because looks like the eye is gonna be a bit of freehand because while there is a dent there, it's not super defined. And I think I want to make his eye a little bit bigger than what the model has allowed for. I'm going to spin him around this way so that I can pull towards my hand. Consistency like, that's good. Hey, g'day, did you finish the Necron ship? Let's not talk about that. I've stopped streaming it for the time being. I've got a little bit more to do on it. But I'm focusing on this for the time being. Yeah, I put way too much time into that and kind of burnt myself out on it. So I'm working on this now. Yeah, so that's what the eye looks like if I stay completely just to what the mold allows for, which I think is a little bit sad. So I think I do want to feather this out, fan it out a bit further. In fact, what I might do is now that I've done that, I'm going to get a bit more on the brush and point the tip of the brush and pull back into the eye. That way I get like a nice wick. Back here. There we are. That's quite nice because the shape of the brush is quite since it's quite a long brush, I can really point with it and use the long tip of it. What's the plan for this man? This is pretty much it. I was working away on him yesterday. What brand of brushes are you using? All right. I Okay, they are very nice brushes. They're artist opus. Because one of the things that really got me into painting was watching the artist opus dry brushing, and so I was really interested in them. So they are not cheap, but I really like them. And so every time I use them, I'm really worried about damaging them. So I use a lot of really shit brushes for a lot of the rougher stuff that I do. But when I'm doing really fine detail work like this, I really do like just swapping over to these good quality brushes. But yeah, like if you don't have a set of good dry brushes and you like dry brushing, I do really recommend the Artist Opus ones. They are very nice. And because that's what their whole brand, I believe, it was initially based in dry brushing. So like they're really good. Alright, that eye ended up looking a lot better than the first one, so I might actually come back around with a bit more paint on the brush and revisit the first eye. Really fill it in there. Yeah, that's a bit better. Might just actually clean the brush, and while the paint there is still wet, just with a clean brush, just see if I can make the strokes a little narrower. Just with a wet brush, just see if I can pull that down a bit. Don't think I really achieved anything there, but I think overall that's pretty good. Next, I'll just use a bit of red. Yeah, just looked them up a lot. Yeah, a lot of 175 Canadian for the dry brushes. That's what I mean. They are very expensive brushes. So if you haven't started painting, it's a bit of a big investment. But yeah, otherwise a good substitute for dry brushes. Makeup brushes work really well because they have the really thick plume of bristles. So that's a much cheaper alternative to get a similar result. But otherwise, for the most part, regular synthetic brushes work just fine for most of your solutions. The main thing you get when you go to higher quality brushes is their ability to hold a really sharp point. But for the most part, you don't really need super fine brushes. It's only when you're doing really, really fiddly stuff. And like painting is as easy or as hard as you make it to be. seems cathartic and zen. It really is. I started painting while I was on a university exchange in Japan, and I didn't have my computer to play most of my games or anything, and I needed a hobby, and I thought that I would not be able to sit down and just paint, but it's just so easy just to sit here and paint for hours. It's really, really good. I reckon that looks pretty good. I might get a tiny point of yellow in the middle of this. It's like that. And then clean my brush. And do a little bit of a wet blend on that. You just drag it from the outside, drag all of that in. Yeah, it seems pretty good. I'm happy with that. Then with what do we think? Maybe I'll get a little bit of the orange that I used for his eyes. I'll add a little bit more red to a corner of it, so it gets a bit darker than the tone we used for his eyes. Then we'll come over here. And just do these little recesses. Being very careful doing this because I'm using the very tip of the brush, which when you're using good quality brushes, you want to avoid like stabbing with the tip of the brush, because otherwise you can bend the bristles and damage them. I'm being very, very gentle. It's not as much of a concern with synthetic brushes because they're a bit sturdier and you can be pretty rough with them and they'll usually spring back. When you're using natural hair brushes, they can get damaged if you're rough with them. I'm probably going to need to come back through and do another pass of these orange dots, because the orange pigment has pretty poor coverage, so you can see as it dries, little holes in the coat will start to open up. Oh, got a bit zealous there. Oh, I've made a mess. Hang on. How can I fix this? Let's clean the brush. Okay, completely clean brush. We're just going to come through and just drag those bits into the hole. Just sort of wipe away at the point where it went over the edge. Doesn't seem to be helping too much though. Damn it. There goes my perfect paint job. Ah well. But yeah, as I was saying, in the previous dot there, I'm not sure how well you can see, but there's a little bit of an imperfection in the coverage there opening up. Because orange pigments, things mainly in the yellow sort of spectrum, they do have poorer coverage. So I'm going to need to come back through with an additional coat just to clean that up. pretty good. Do the other side. Oh, actually, let's do this bit on his back as well while we're at it. Do this one in red. I'll just get a decent dollop of red on the tip of my brush. And just sort of drop that in there. Then using the very tip, just very gently drag it around to cover the whole inside. Cool. Let's get back around to the front. Well, actually, no, we were doing the back, weren't we? We were doing this bit. And so... just thinking about how I want to do this. Or how I want to do the blade. Because I'm sort of torn between doing the blade as like a heat blade and having it look really crazy, and doing it as more of like an ancient rusted knife. So I think both could be quite cool. I could try to go for a middle ground as well. Like have the bottom edge be sort of rusted and metallic, and then the top edge be a heat blade. Okay, well, let's clean off our really fine brush for the time being. And we'll set that aside. And we'll just get some brown, and we'll cover the blade in brown to begin with, and then maybe we'll see how we go from there, because we might actually we might find that we can sort of naturally build up that rusted look, and then work the heat blade aesthetic through it. So going back here with Rhinox hide, which I had used for the initial undercoat. Just like that, bit of that on my wet palette. And we're going to get our sponge again that we were using the other day. I say the other day, it was yesterday. We did this yesterday. Let's get a little bit on that. Just like that. Now we're just going to dab out the excess onto our texture palette till we get a pattern we're happy with. Actually, no, I've just had an idea. That could be really cool. I'm gonna wipe out as much excess as I can, that it doesn't dry and block up the pores of it. And we're gonna get our lead belcher. Is he quite a big boy compared to most figures? He is. So, one sec. I'll give you... This is a Space Marine for scale. So he's pretty big. Okay, so I'm going to do a metallic undercoat for the blade. Just get a bit of lead belcher onto my wet palette. He's a chunky boy, he is. And so I'm just going to use one of my synthetic brushes just to go over most of the heat blade, just well, most of the chopper, nice and quickly. And don't worry if this looks a bit shiny for the rest of his aesthetic, we'll fix that. Is he a character with name or just a class of Marine? So this is a KRORK. So they're basically the ancestors of the orks. So before the orks became stupid legends who smash scrap together and believe in believe that anything can work and thus it works. There were these super soldier legends. But yeah, when I was painting this guy, I realized that the way, the method that I used to paint him yesterday would work really well for painting Space Marines. So my Space Marines, I will probably paint in a similar style to this. Okay. Almost there. Okay. Now, honestly, it looks pretty good even just as, like, a blade like that. But it looks too shiny for me. So we could go for the rusted effect, or we could try to make it like a heat knife, or we could do both. Because my plan is, for the rusted effect, I'm gonna get some brown on the sponge here and just dab it over it. Give it that, give it a bit of a rusted finish like that. And with the heat knife, what I'd be doing is probably over the top edge, I would run a wet blend, just from yellow to or yellow to red to yellow again, and just sort of make it look like it's surging through, and then I'd highlight it with a really bright color. So I might go orange to red to orange to red, and then highlight it with yellow. Decisions. Let's try the heat knife effect, and if we don't like it, we can always just go back over it with metallic. So, the way that we're going to do this is we're going to get... Actually, I might just do one brush blend. So we've got some orange on there. I'll get a bit more orange on the brush, really load it up. Like this. And then on the very end of the brush, I'm just going to get a point of red. Just like this. And so we're going to start with the red back up here. And just, oh, hang on, I'll just get rid of the excess. Okay, so we'll just start up here and just pull this down. As we pull, the orange will flow out of the brush. And then we'll get a bit more red on the tip. And then we'll go in the opposite direction. We'll spin him round. And we'll go red on the very end. And pull it back. I'm not sure if I'm a huge fan of this. The coverage that I've gotten is pretty poor. So I'm gonna smooth this out as best I can so that there's not a lot of pooling. And I think we're just gonna have to glaze this. So just build it up with a lot of layers. I'm just gonna clean my brush. And then just with a completely wet brush, I'm just going to try to smooth out any wet paint so that we don't have any buildup. And then let's load up with orange and get a nice even coverage of it in orange first. And then we'll glaze the red back into it. And working with orange is always a pain because of how thin the pigment is. And it's very easy for it to get a patchy finish. So on one hand, if you go too thin, then you get a really uneven finish, but if you go too thick, it can very easily become splodgy. It's not nice. Okay, now we'll just hold the model still like this, so that the wet paint doesn't run. Just gently blow on it, help it dry, but don't blow on it too hard, or otherwise it'll spread. Do not want. Yeah. Another coat down here. Want to make sure the finish is nice and smooth. That's the most important bit. If you don't get a smooth finish, it is very clear as you add more layers onto it. In fact, I'm not sure if you can probably see what's happening here, is I think I went on a bit early, and so I'm actually moving the paint away instead of adding more in. Bit of a painful process. Dab a little bit on there. Very gently smooth it out without, and hopefully without pushing it off of the section I'm trying to cover. We'll see how that dries, and while that dries, let's do a second coat on the top edge here. And that's drying quite nicely. So now let's do the bottom edge of the blade. And then once we have our orange built up, then we can come back through. And start glazing the red on. Getting quite patchy. We'll just have to build this up with a few layers. There we are. That's a bit nicer. Just let this dry. Just making sure I'm keeping the face that I've just painted facing up so that the paint doesn't run. And that's probably good enough. Go for another coat now. That was too early. Started sort of scratching away at the tacky paint. We're just gonna stipple the paint on instead. That way it's not gonna be, we're not wiping away any of the stuff that's still tacky. Actually, no, okay, yeah, I just need to try again, because I made a mess. Although what this does actually do is it's sort of unintentionally creating highlights. Yeah, I'm actually just getting some highlights with the way this is wiping things out towards the outer edges. Which I'm not, actually not all that fussed about. So I'll let that dry for a bit. And now I'll get one of my nicer quality brushes. This one's probably a good size. And we'll use it to glaze some red in there. So, how glazing works is we just get a fair bit of water on our brush, and we're going to, I'll just, one sec. We are making a very, very thinned down version of the paint we want to use. So we're just getting the red out here and really, really thinning it down. We want it to be mostly water. And now with this very, very, very thin solution, it's going to build up some layers. Now the paint will pool at the point that we drag to. So the darkest points will be where our brush finishes. since it's mostly water, it dries quite quickly as well. You can see very tiny, a very, very slight effect right where it's finished there. So we're just gonna work away at this. Just each new coat, we're going to start from slightly further out. That way we get a nice gradient. We just keep picking up more paint every time. I'm gonna pull from out here this time, all the way down, and make sure we pull all of the pigment as far down as we can. And just like that, we've managed to glaze a nice finish there. And then we're just going to do it again from the top edge. So once again, it's going to water down my red quite a bit. Spin it round, and we're going to drag from about here down, corner, let that dry. Drag from a bit higher up and into the corner. Let that dry, and then drag from a bit higher up down into the corner. And just with a wet brush, I'm actually going to drag up as well. And then I'm just going to focus some more of it down on that lower edge there so that we can get a really good distinction of color. And that's looking quite nice. Keep it angled down so that the wet paint keeps rolling down while it dries. Once that's dry, we can do the other side. I'm not too fussed about the top edge. In fact, I might just make the whole top edge quite dark, just more leaning towards red, and then edge highlight it all with orange. And I think that'd make it pop. Yeah, so that's what I'm actually going to do, is I'm going to glaze the whole top edge with a pretty thick glaze of red. Just so that it's more leaning towards the red spectrum, but mainly so that when I come through with an orange highlight, it'll really, really pop. And even while I'm doing this, I'm still making sure that I'm dragging the paint towards the points that I want to be darkest. So this little recess underneath the lip there, I am dragging into to make sure that's the darkest red point, because it's the most hidden, I guess, most covered. That makes sense to me that it'd be darker, even though it's technically an object emitting light. It just makes sense for it to seem darker in that corner there to me, so that's what we're doing. Okay, and now that's night and day, really. Now that, like, it didn't look like we were doing much on the other side, but when we compare this to this, you can really see what the glaze has done for it. Part of this is also just because we haven't fully finished the orange coat on this side. So we'll come through and just clean up this orange coat, make sure it's nice and even. There we are, this should dry nicely. Clean this brush and get ready to glaze it. Okay, that should be dry now. Yeah, it's a pretty thin coat of orange that I put on there, so it's dried quite quickly. So we can get back to doing our red glaze. So, like before, we start quite close to the tip. Drag down. I think the mix that I have might be a bit thick because I can very clearly see the edge of where I'm starting. So I might do a little bit more water. The thinner the paint, the smoother result you can get. It just means you need more coats. Gonna start a little bit higher up this time and pull down. Blow on it gently, let it dry. Go again. Okay, think we're getting there. In fact, that glaze probably is good. So now we can spin them around. Oh, actually, it's still drying. Don't want to spin it around just yet. Alright, should be good now. Okay. And we just do the same thing again. Start from around about here. Just pull it down into the recess. Dry. And repeat. And I think that should be pretty good. So once that dries, we get to tackle the question of, do we want to make this look rusted? Or more just keep it the way it is? Because I think honestly, either way could work. Oh, hang on. Actually, before we tackle that question, let's get some edge highlights on this. And for this, we are going to highlight all the way down because the whole thing is live energy. So just going to get a very thin highlight. Be very, very careful. Even that might be a bit thick. Whoops. Okay. So, I think we can rust it up. So the way that I'm thinking of doing this is with the sponge. First, I dab sections of the lead belcher onto it, and then I dab sections of the brown on top of that. I think we might be able to make something happen with that. So we're going to get a little bit of the metallic on our sponge, dab out the excess. We get a pattern we're happy with, and just test a bit on the fingernail. I think that'll be okay. And now we just come through and ruin all of our hard work. This. I think these sections that we're dabbing it onto, I'm going to try to be quite concentrated, really make it sort of a more evenly spread section. Now we wipe off our excess metallic. And we get the brown on our brush, or on our sponge. And again, we dab off the excess. You get a consistency we're happy with, test it on the nail. It's all right. Now we just come back through on these bits that we've done up in the metallic. Just, I actually might need a tiny bit more of the brown. I think I got rid of a bit too much. Let's give this a shot. Just very gently. And then I'm going to pick up some more brown, and we're just going to go over all of the metallic that we have and just give it that little bit of rusted look to it. Just gently dabbing over all of it with our brown. I think it's a bit thick on the sponge, so we want to thin it out a bit so that it's not super splotchy. I like the texture that we get out of it, so we don't want it to be too thick. We lose that texture. At the same time, we can't, if it's too thin, then we have to press to get it to apply. That's the opposite issue, because then we end up smearing it, which is also not what we want. Okay, I think that's looking pretty good. What we can do now, let's get the excess off this bugger. I think for the most part, I'm pretty happy with how the mini has turned out, so we can go over to the base. Have him in the background there. Oh, we can get to work on the base. So, the base is urban. We've got concrete, we've got rebar, and some rubble. I reckon concrete will go grey, rebar brown, rubble probably a slightly lighter brown. We want the rebar to look rusted. And so then we'll have concrete dust that will probably then apply to the tops of his feet and probably like his ankles. So, colors that we'll be using for this. Iron oxide. Maybe lead belcher, we'll see. Probably grey sear, Ushabti bone. Corn red. That's probably all we'll need. Actually, we could get some nice looks with contrast paints here. I think what we can do, we can dry brush this, and then use some contrast paints to get a nice even coverage. That could be good. If we were to do that, we'd be looking at something like Skeleton Horde. And we can use Agrak's Earthshade just to dirty everything up. That'd be easier as well, and we'd be able to get some good tones going there. What does this apothecary white look like? It's a bit blue, really. Probably won't use that one. Whatever, I reckon. Let's dry brush some stuff. I love dry brushing. So, we'll get our moisture pad. Add a couple of drops of water to it. And we can probably just slap chop the base. So that means we're going to get a bit of grey sear. Put a little bit of it on the texture palette. Actually, since we're... No, we can use the sharp T-bone for our brighter highlights. So, bit of grey sear on the texture palette. Get some moisture on our dry brush. Just enough to get a little bit of a sheen on our hand. Then pick up a tiny bit of the white on the tip of our dry brush. Spread it around the bristles a bit. And then we can just start coating. I might have a bit too much moisture, honestly. But as we brush, that'll all even out. So initially we're doing a very heavy overbrush, just trying to cover as much as we can. Gonna smooth it out a bit, get rid of moisture where we can. Actually, you might need a bit more moisture. I think not enough moisture, and that's why we're getting the streakiness. Bit of trial and error, really, just trying to figure out how to get the coverage that we want. Okay, that's our first coat. So just get a bit more paint. Just like that. Bit more paint on the tip of the brush. Spread it around again. Get it to a point we're happy with the coverage of it. That's good. And we'll come back through for another hit. I'm gonna make sure we brush against these edges as well, because that'll give us some nice highlights. Especially since we're planning on kind of slap chopping this. These highlights are going to be very important. Yeah, we can really pick out that top edge there. Dry brushing is a really easy way to pick out edge highlights. You can see I've got these really bright bits running around the outside rim there. It's just from brushing against the edge with it. Nothing fancy. Okay. That's probably good for our base coat of it. Now, I don't think I want to do just a just boring gray white for the base, because like we put him on there. It's alright. It's okay, but I think we can do better than that. So, what I reckon we want to do is, first up, I'm going to try just put a bit of lead belcher on the rebar here. Just so it has a bit of metallic to it. And then we'll come back through over the top with a brown glaze. But we'll get back to all this at the end. It's the main thing that we're doing right now. It's going to be shading this stuff. Now, we might be able to get away with just using the Agrax Earthshade over the rubble. So let's just see what kind of result we can get with that. Because that might be all we need just for the rubble itself. Just keep the lid of this popped open so that we can pick up any more that we need. We're probably going to want to really dollop this in there. This is the awkward thing about not knowing what, about going in without a plan. Is you just want to just end up fumbling your way around until you come across something you like. Sometimes it works, but most of the time you'll do something and not like it, and you'll just have to come back and redo it. think this is honestly looking pretty good. Just adds a little bit of color to it. Nothing crazy, but it's just enough to sort of give it a bit of interest. I'll just hold the base at this angle here, because otherwise the paint will run, because it's very, very watery. And then we can think about what we want to do for the rest of it. Actually, I guess we've got this stuff around this side here as well, which we'll be doing in the same. Actually, all this stuff over here as well. And now I understand this might be one of the more boring parts, but the base is arguably the most important bit, because if your base looks shit, your mini looks shit. Your base looks awesome and your mini looks alright, then your mini looks awesome. I just want to make sure that I can get a at least a decent looking base. Because I'm really happy with how the minis turned out, so I want to do it justice. I think for the for that part, for the most part with the what are we calling it? The earth shade, the wash that I'm putting on here, I think it's mostly dried. Just reapplying it on sections where it's run off of the section, or run off of the faces where I want to keep it. For the most part, it's looking pretty good. Because even just with this bit, I think that it adds a lot of character. Like, that definitely looks a lot better just with that. honestly, I think I'm kind of okay with keeping the top part of the base just as this grey sear color, just the concrete. I just want to make sure the rubble itself is differentiated. So we'll just get these bits of rubble and pick them out with the Agrax Earthshade. We're using it quite heavily because we really want it to color it. And we want it to fall into the recesses so that it can give those shadows. Very large drop of it I just put there. That's probably way too much. Just dry our brush and then just suck it up with the dry brush. The nice thing about washes is since they're so liquid, if you apply too much, you can just dry out your brush and then it'll just flow straight back into it. Just pick up all the excess. What I do think I want is I might just apply the Earthshade to the edges of the concrete. Not super heavy, but just enough to add some depth. And we'll pull it down so that it gets darker as it goes down. We want it to be pretty thin, just so that we can get a bit of texture in there. So, like what we were doing before when we were glazing, we're pulling in the direction where we want it to pull. In fact, a bit much there, so just with clean brush, nothing but water on it, just going to thin it out a bit. In fact, I don't think I need too much of it at all. Just gonna very gently just dab it on around the lower edges here. Very small amounts of it. Just going for minimal effect. Okay, and then just going to get our rhinox hide, so back to our brown. And just get the rebar with it. Ooh, nearly lost the mini. Went on a bit thick, so I'm just getting a bit of water on the tip of my brush just so I can thin it down. Just expose the texture on it. And that's looking pretty good. Now, I think that's pretty good. So what we can do, we can glue this guy on, and then we'll add some concrete dust to his feet and ankles, just really blend him in with the environment. So get our trusty Gorilla Glue. And the bottle is always so firm to squeeze, so I'm really scared that I'm just going to shoot glue everywhere and make a mess. Okay. This should be heaps. See how we go. I don't want to have any come out the sides. So just like that. So nervous. Also, the spikes on his feet are digging into my finger right now, and it's quite painful. I don't think I've put it down properly. I don't think this is gonna hold. Probably gonna have to try again in a second. Yeah. Hey, take one is a failure. Had the glue in just slightly the wrong spots. I don't think I had any contact there was the issue. This is so painful. I gotta try to put him back on the same spot so that I don't have glue marks everywhere. Oh man, that's gross. Glue just splooging out around his foot there. Well, I know his foot has made contact at least. As soon as this is tacky, I'm getting a shit quality brush and trying to scoop that shit out. Yep, okay, he can stand. Alright, we need to rescue the mini. And have I done this the wrong way around? No, I haven't. Okay, where's my shit brush? Here. I just scoop that out. He's trying to fall over. Okay, now I just need to hold him. Hold him. Please. Please stay put, sir. Know what's happening? The glue is bonding to the paint and just pulling the paint up. Oh, making such a mess. Okay, we know where his feet are going to be. How do we fix this? Okay. So I'm thinking what we need to do is scratch away the paint where his feet are going to go down. That way, at least there will be a point where the resin is attached to the resin. Just need to scratch away at this, as loath as I am to. And just cross hatch it. Get as much surface area as possible. I'm probably making experienced painters cry right now. Okay, now let's just wipe all this extra shit off. Oop. And then we'll need to take off the excess glue from his feet, because glue does not like to stick to glue. And before we try glue him down this time, let's do the smart thing and look at where his feet actually contact the model. I've just spun it around the other way, and it's clear that he was meant to go on the other way. 1 foot there, 1 foot there. Actually, was he? Maybe what I should do is I should look at the image of the fully built one and just see how they did it. See which direction he's facing on there. Hey. The way they have built him is like this, the way I was doing it initially. Okay. So, where is the most surface area? It is mainly on the front foot, the front part of the sole. The back foot is at the front left. Okay. Let's try this again. Front foot, front of the sole. Back foot, front left. Front foot, front of the sole. Back foot, front left. Please, please stick this time. Okay, I have contact. I have contact. Now just hold him very still. Just hold him very still. Ah, please stay stuck down. Okay. Okay. Sit him down. And let him chill for a bit. And hope, pray to dear God that he doesn't fall over. Once the glue is dry, then we can start fucking around with the last little touches. I managed to completely ruin this brush with the super glue, which is awesome. I don't really use it for painting anyway, so this is now well and truly my shit brush. But yeah. What we want to do now is get some, let's see if we can use this shit brush for what I want to do. What I want to do is get the look of concrete dust. Just spattered everywhere. So I'm just going to load up the shit brush with the grey sear that we used. And just get rid of a vast majority of the paint on it. Make sure it's really dry. And then if I stipple with it, am I able to get a bit of dusty look? Like if I dry brush with it. Kind of. Not really what I want. We'll just use our dry brushes for it. So, our trusty dry brush. Moisture on the moisture pad. Wet it. Nice sheen there. Pick up a little bit of our grey sear. Yeah. Pick him up very carefully. Okay. And start dusting him up. Get a bit of it gathering on those top edges there. Look at that. Get a bit more grey. And then come through. Oh, that's a bit too much grey. Just get rid of a bit. And now come on through. Dust him up. Being very careful to avoid hitting any of the, oh, hang on, it's still quite wet. Being very careful to avoid hitting any of the super glue that's still there. Do not want to ruin these brushes. And cool. I think we're pretty much there. Dusty dogs, his dogs are dusty as hell. Okay, I think we're pretty much done. I'm super happy with this. This looks fucking sick. I don't care what anyone else says. This is an awesome mini. Let's fucking go. Yahoo! Look at this bastard. He is a mean green fighting machine. Oh, I need to do the rim. I need to do the rim. I can't say I'm done. I haven't done the rim. Shit. Forgive me. Can't act like we're done when we haven't even done the rim. So, get one of our nice smooth brushes. In out some black. This is the bit where everything just comes together. Just like a nice little final part. So we're bidding farewell to the mini. It's a big base, so a lot of paint onto the rim. A lot of paint goes onto the rim. Probably need to do a second pass just to make sure it's all nice and smooth. And it is all just separating. A pretty good rim job I did there. Thank you. I love rimming. Clip that. Okay, we're almost done. Okay. And with that, we are finished. Nice work. Okay. Beautiful. I've got to say, probably my favorite mini so far. Had a lot of fun painting this fella. Yeah, I really, really enjoyed this. It was a fun way to paint, doing a lot of stuff with the sponge. It was really cool. It's very reminiscent of dry brushing. Oh, whoops. Yeah, very reminiscent of dry brushing, but it had its own little fun twist. Yeah, I'm very happy with this. So I'm going to call it here. Thanks for popping by. Always good to have you here, Reese. Gives me someone to talk to. Thanks to everyone else who was here as well. Very cool. Yeah, with that, I'm probably just gonna head off now. Clean up all my brushes. And think about what we're gonna do next. With that being said, thanks for popping by.